Hello.
That's making the end of season bloopers.
What is?
We've been live for 20 seconds now, and everyone saw you bobbing along like that
Oh, okay,
because it
fair
hasn't
enough.
played an intro.
Well, it did on my end. But anyway, hello and welcome back to yet another episode of Green and White, brought to you by Argyle Life. I say on a regular occurrence that I have done no prep. I've done literally none. So this is going to go really well. So instead of an intro with all the funny puns that you all love that are like really well worded and really well worked, I'm just going to read out a few tweets. Chris, you taught us a lesson today. You ain't going down if you keep playing like that. Tom Wild, probably the best away performance I've seen this season. Yes, we won. Yes, we played at 10%. But if you play like anything like that, you'll be fine. Ricky Thorpe, great performance today. Best team at the lane so far. You deserve more. Outsung, outplayed us. Good luck for the rest of the season. Ali says, how are you lot bottom? We're not. Thank you, Hull. Best side to come up to the lane by far this year. Danny, unlucky today. You were the better team. I could go on and on and on and on. Maybe I screenshotted far too many of those. So yeah, we are class. We are back. Mighty Plymouth Argyle suffered a 2-0 defeat at the hands of league leaders Sheffield United, but opposition fans are calling us class again, which is great. Joining me tonight, Joe Bell. How's things?
Yeah, very good, mate. Thank you. I'm in good shape and looking forward to another fine episode.
Good. I don't know where Adam's gone. Sam Down, how's things?
Yeah, very good. I'm unsettled at being moved from my bottom right corner with Adam suddenly disappearing, but yeah, not bad. Feeling certainly much better than after the last few away games for certain.
What time did you get home
I think I saw my bed at pretty much bang on midnight to the minute. I think we got back into Plymouth at about 20 to midnight, and by the time we then got, I did get a lift back home from Dan, friend of the podcast. I didn't have to rely on taxis, but it was I think I literally just got into my bed as the clock ticked on to midnight. So earlier than some, later than others.
He's been demoted to just friend of the pod. That's sad to hear, isn't it? And as always, Adam Price, how's things?
Yeah, thank you. As always, yeah, it didn't look like it was going to be a couple of minutes ago when I disappeared. Yeah, answer on a postcard for that one because I've got no idea what happened. But yeah, I'm very well, thank you, and very well in the sense of we've gone away and I've not come home manically depressed. So that's got to be a good sign.
Yeah, Sam. Obviously, I come to you for the post-match run-through, so I'm not going to change that now. But Adam sort of touches it on it there that we went with absolutely no expectation, and we've come away from a 2-0 defeat quite happy, haven't we?
Yeah, we absolutely have, certainly with the standard of performance. I said on Tuesday, on Wednesday after the game on Tuesday, that the Swansea game, as much as it wasn't good, was probably our best performance since the second international break. But the performance yesterday comfortably surpassed that. That's now, without a doubt, our best performance since the second international break. Certainly our best performance on the road in many, many months. And with the only exception of Blackburn home, is the best we played under Wayne Rooney. That's just the one game that I think slightly edged it. We went to the best team in the league, and we were the better team of the two. I'm not going to say comfortably the better team of the two, because I think in the last 20 minutes, you could tell that those players who had been playing all game and had played on Tuesday as well, a lot of travelling, were getting a bit leggy, a little bit sluggish on the ball. The threat was ebbing away. And you could see that with the mistake from Brendan Galloway. It gave away the penalty. But, apart from that last 20 minutes, we were excellent. And obviously also, if we're being brutally honest about it, as much as we don't really like to dig out individuals, the quality of the subs who came on were nowhere near as good as the players who started the game. Just that's why they're subs. Ultimately, the squad depth is not good enough. We know that already. Excuse me. Yeah, it was a very accomplished performance indeed. The amount of chances we had that were like actually decent chances probably almost outshot all the rest of the away games the season put together. We had the Hardy header in the first half that went across goal. We had the Hardy header in the second half, of which the Mike Cooper save was probably up there with the very best I've ever seen him make. He was at full stretch. We had obviously Hajj in a lot of space in the first half. I think he should have done better, but he hit it straight at Mike Cooper. Cooper didn't really have to move, so it was a fairly comfortable save. And obviously the biggest one of all was Darko JB, of course. Open goal, got whole goal to aim at. Yes, it was, about 15 yards out, but it's coming to him quite nicely. It's not being absolutely belted to him. It falls to him okay. Cooper's out of his position. He's got the whole goal to aim at and just absolutely blazes it. Doesn't even get close to hitting the woodwork even. So that was a lot of good chances that we had in the game. I think there were a couple of, apart from the ones I've mentioned, I think there were a few other sort of maybe half chances as well that sort of whistled across goal or shots from a bit of a distance that, in themselves are not great chances. But when you factor that in with all the others I've mentioned, simply complements what was a very good performance in which the main thing lacking was the finishing. In terms of the goals conceded, couple of nitpicks there, maybe. I think it's Obafemi doesn't really close down Harmer for the first, and I did initially think Dan Grimshaw should do better in terms of getting down to save it, but having seen the replay, he is a bit unsighted, so can kind of let him off that one a little bit. I don't think it's an unsavable shot, but I think it's a tough one to save, certainly with the position of the defenders. Grimshaw is unsighted, so let him off the hook for that one. And obviously the second goal is just a very clumsy challenge. I think he just goes into it with more force than he intends to. I think he just slips and loses control of his limbs a bit, does Brendan Galloway. And I think that just summed up that sort of tired, leggy nature of the last 20. We committed a foul, gave away the penalty, and despite Grimshaw's best efforts to put off Kiefer Moore trying to point where it was going to go, Kiefer Moore scored nonetheless. So, certainly 10,000 times better than most of the absolute rubbish we've been served up on the road this season. No denying that at all. It was a coherent performance, so much better on the ball. We actually had good rotations. We played out from the back and did it well. We didn't just do the old predictable, tap it around the back and then boot a long ball up the pitch because we've got fed up of it. We actually effectively played out from the back. We broadly defended well, apart from the one or two moments I've mentioned. And the pressing is the other thing. The pressing was tenfold better. When they actually had the ball, we didn't just do our usual thing of sit back and let them push us back and play through us. We just really, pressed them in a coordinated way as a unit, kept our shape, didn't just, have players running off doing their own thing like has sometimes happened this season. It was a cohesive, coherent team performance of which we deserved at least a draw. And I would probably venture that we deserved all 3 points on the balance of play. Just didn't get the finishing right and a couple of sloppy defensive moments. But frustrating, yes. Room for improvement, yes. But goodness me, isn't it so much better to come out of a game of that nature than coming out feeling angry and miserable and frustrated like we have done. So credit where it's due to Mr. Rooney and Mr. Phelan, because if that's, the benefit of a few days on the training pitch, then we've got to keep playing like this. We've got to keep playing like this, because if we do, we'll pick up points against worse teams in Sheffield United.
Did I hear you correctly then when you said on the balance of play we deserve 3 points?
I think so, yeah. I think the only thing that's maybe slightly changed that is the last. What did Sheffield United have, Aaron? They had their 2 goals, whereas we had countless chances, like I've mentioned.
And I mean, if we scored more goals than they did, then that would have changed the game.
Apart from the finishing, only apart from the finishing. But if we're going to say that in games against like Watford and Preston and Derby and whatever, we deserved to lose and we were lucky to get a point, which I think is broadly correct, then in a game like yesterday, we were unlucky not to get more than we did. I think we were the better team on the day, without a doubt. And that to me is a classic case of credit where it's due, because not that I'm a fan of how this season's gone at all, but I'm a very big fan of how we played yesterday, and it was only the finishing that was the problem, and a couple of defensive moments. In terms of midfield dominance, chance creation, we absolutely outplayed Sheffield United.
Okay. Well, if we didn't concede 2, didn't concede a penalty and scored 3, then yeah, fair enough. I mean, personally, I think we'd have been okay for a point. I think a point would have been fair, but to say all 3 is a bit mad. But when do you say anything sensible, eh, Sam? Adam, going to come to you. Sam's already touched on it as he touched on all of my points, but as I've said, I have no points for tonight. So get your questions in the comments. God, words. Adam went into yesterday, absolutely no expectation, no hope, no nothing, and I had a very nice day out. Is that just the plan going forward now? Should we just do that every week?
I'd like to have a nice day out every week, every Saturday in particular, and possibly a few midweeks as well. Maybe even Boxing Day around Christmas. If we all have a few days out between now and the end of the season, we're in for a good time. So let's go for that. I will agree then that yes, yesterday was an awful lot better and an awful lot more of where we want to go. I am with Sam to the extent that I thought we were the better team. Which is a great endorsement of where we sit, because I know there's a few looking at games where we've played well, but ultimately the better team's beaten us. I look at West Brom, and there's an argument that we were the better team there, and I don't necessarily agree we were at the Hawthorns. I thought we played well, don't get me wrong, but I thought ultimately they had the better chances. Yesterday, I do think we were the better team. I wouldn't necessarily go as far to say we deserve to win the game. I don't think it's one of those where we say a draw would have flattered them by any stretch. But I certainly think a point would have absolutely been fair, as I think was demonstrated by the way that when the penalty went in, their celebration was very much one of relief rather than it was the celebratory stuff you usually get from a last minute goal. They knew they'd been in a game yesterday, and that's testament to the way we went and the way we set up. I mean, I say fair play to Wayne Rooney for the lineup he put out. I went into this one thinking that we'd probably see a very similar shape to what we saw at Leeds United. We tried to hold on for dear life, and we ultimately pay the price for that. Trying to keep my composure. Yes, I have come dressed as a cricketer today. Not in celebration of Bramall Lane being a former cricket ground. It's the Cricketers' Arms, or whatever it was called, that was just opposite the away end. Which
not to celebrate the performance from England and New Zealand last night either, I should think.
Yes, and we're not talking about that. Thank you. I mean, it's nice to have done that when the series is
don't.
already won, I guess. Anyway, so yeah, I think fair play to Rooney for not going defensive and not going for the sort of system where we're trying to hold on. And I think it showed and delivered those results. It helped, obviously, that I think the best players for this formation played. I think when you've got the option of Galloway or Ogbeta at left back, it's no contest, frankly. I think getting Rami Hajj back in there was a move that paid dividends, and we really gave them a game. The key ultimately is where we go from here, because there's an argument that this game will not have changed anybody's opinion on where Plymouth Argyle sit at the moment. Those who wanted the head coach to be dismissed will point at this and say, we've lost yet another game, we haven't scored, what are we waiting for? Those who wanted him to remain in post will say, that's a seriously improved performance, and if we keep playing like that, we're going to be fine. And that is the if now, ultimately. That is where we are, and going into a big game against Middlesbrough next week. If we can keep that level of performance up, then we'll look back on this one and say, hey, yeah, that was the start of something. That could mark a turning point, even though we didn't win a game. If we go back into our shell and we don't put in those and we lose again, and we go on to Boxing Day and don't really deliver as well, then we could well be looking back on yesterday as, do you know what? That might have been a bit of a missed opportunity there to take a point when we didn't expect when we played well. So that's where we are ultimately. This game it's a defeat, and I think we all expected it to be a defeat. I don't think any of us expected to play as well as we did, and you've got to use that as a catalyst now going into the next game and beyond, because it would be a real waste if we don't, because that lineup was impressive. The way we played were even more so. It's got to be a springboard. Not looking at the result, because we as I say, we all expected that. You've got to take that performance and put it there again and again and again. And if we do, then I think he will start changing a few opinions, possibly mine included. We'll see.
There's a couple of things I want to take apart really quite frankly. Number one is Adam's statement there about those who wanted Rooney to be dismissed will say it's another defeat, another game where we haven't conceded away from home, etc. Those who wanted to keep Rooney in position will say it's a much improved performance, etc., etc. Now, as adverse to what I said on the podcast the other day, I'm 50-50 as to whether or not I think Wayne Rooney should be
They
leading
do
us into the
exist.
new year, etc. But whilst it was a much improved performance, we also shouldn't lose sight of the bigger picture here, that it is a fourth successive defeat. It is another game on the road where we haven't scored. And, you know, results, they kind of went our way to a degree over the weekend, I would suggest. But that, you know, there's now a gap, isn't there, between Luton and who's the other team there? QPR, is it? Is it 4 points, 5 points, something like that? So I don't think we should lose sight of that. However, I think when it's been slim pickings for so long, you have to clutch to any positive that you're given. And the one thing I think everybody wanted to see yesterday was a bit of fight, spirit, character, grit, determination, and just all-round effort, really. And I think we saw that in abundance across the pitch. I totally disagree with Sam's point that we would value for all 3 points. I think that's a little bit farcical to suggest that. I think a point would have been fair. I think, to extend his point about, we had countless chances and they had 2 goals, etc. Well, other than Hardy's save in the second half, I can't actually remember Michael Cooper being brought into anything that would have broken him into a sweat. I thought we did okay. I was thoroughly expecting us to be overrun in midfield, and it didn't happen. I thought the 2 lads in the midfield, JB and Randall, I think they both deserve a huge amount of praise for their performance yesterday. I thought they, in a tough game against a very good side who I believe had a bit of an off day. Was that down to them being a bit complacent, or was it actually down to the fact they expected us to play like we did at Leeds and at Norwich, and actually we came out and took the game to them and it put them off? Who knows? But I think,
judging by their fans on Twitter and stuff, that seems to be how they play most weeks. They just grind out wins.
maybe
Just
it
a bit
is. I mean, if
boring
you look at their
squads.
results, they don't tend to win by more than 2-0, particularly at home. So maybe that is just how they do it. I think if you look at the back line, that's the biggest point for me yesterday, was the back 4 that looked as strong and as steady as we've been all season, because we had 4 people playing in a position where they were comfortable. We had the 2 best centre halves playing as 2 centre halves, and we had 2 fullbacks who like to get forward, but if they're getting forward and they get caught in possession, they can then get back just as quick. And that's the issue. We were getting caught out when we had Paulson and Ogbeta and even Sorinola in those positions. So I think when you've got a steady foundation like that in the back 4, I think that helps. And look, I don't rate Bundu. Again, that's an opinion that's well known, but I thought he had a very, very good game yesterday. I thought Obafemi played okay on the left. I don't think it's his natural position, but I think he did okay. And Al Hajj, another one coming in off a break of games. I actually thought Rami Al Hajj had a decent enough effort out there yesterday. So broadly speaking, I think if we'd got a point, I think we'd have sat here and said, we probably deserve that. But the biggest thing to come out of the game is 2-0 is incredibly cruel, because that was not a 2-0 scoreline. I think had it finished 1-0, I probably would have been a little bit more content with it. And to round off my point, I don't like losing any game. But as I've said loads of times, I can accept losing when it comes down to a pure golfing quality. Yesterday up front, Sheffield United were clinical and they got the job done when they needed to. We just don't have that quality. And you can live with that because it's something you can address in the transfer window if there's a budget there to be had. Only time will tell on that. But we just, what you can legislate for is a lack of effort, a lack of fight, a lack of spirit that we've had in recent games. That was back yesterday. It was a real improvement. But as Adam alluded to at the end of his point, now the acid test is, can they back it up? Something we haven't done all season. We haven't backed up a good performance all season. So now the acid test at home in front of what's likely to be a sellout Christmas crowd. Christmas period often brings crazy games, doesn't it? I mean, last Christmas was just wild. So anything's possible on Saturday. And, you know, let's just hope we get through the week without picking up any silly injuries on the training ground like we seem to become quite accustomed to lately.
Yeah, I was about to say I'm looking forward to seeing like 4 players ruled out in midweek for whatever UFC fighting they're doing down at Harper's Park. Adam, you wanted to touch on the starting lineup. I think Joe's nailed most of it, but whatever's left you can pick up. But that's our strongest 11 until January. Isn't it? You just got
I didn't mention Ryan Hardy, so Adam's point has to be purely about Ryan Hardy, I think.
Oh, that's fine. I'm sure Adam can wax lyrical about him.
I'll do my best. Yeah, particularly if Sandra's watching or listening. I hope you are. I think the lineup. I mentioned it a bit earlier about having the best players in their best positions. Certainly happened. Certainly, Joe has mentioned that with the centre halves and the fullbacks as well. I did see a comment come in that I completely agree with. That selection kind of makes a few of the other team selections, shall we say, a little bit more baffling. Yeah, it's on screen now from Paul. Yes, absolutely. It's not as if we've recently had injury returnees. It's not as if Al Hajj has been out because he's pulled a hamstring or something. It's not as if Brendan Galloway has been injured, but it's not as if he wasn't available to play left back in midweek when he could have done. So there's a few confusing ones there. But yeah, as I say, I was happy to see. Well, I was just about to tell a lie. When the team lineup came out, I was very surprised and confused to see it. Whereas by the end of the game, I was actually very pleased and very happy that we had lined up that way. So yeah, I was pleased with the performance, and again, it will be interesting to see how we line up going forward. And I think this is the basis. This is the shape. With possibly looking at Randall in a deeper role in midfield. This is how we generally tend to do it in terms of, or how we generally should be tending to do it in terms of making ourselves play at our best, and with the 2 centre mids in JB and Al Hajj ahead of Randall. Yeah, it's very keen to see. I'm very keen to see rather where it goes after that. Because then you've got the encouraging part is, imagine if you had the injury returnees then in this team. Imagine if they had the same team that we had yesterday, but it had Sissoko and Whittaker on the wings. Imagine if we had a few more. I know there's questions about Tijani as well, who somebody on our coach yesterday described as our Czechoslovakian centre forward, which is wrong for all sorts of reasons. So that, there's that as well. There's the 2 wingers, and there's Joe Edwards, of course, as well, who enters that conversation as and when he's back to full fitness. So I think we saw signs with that lineup. I'm happy to say I was proved wrong both in my expectations and expectations of the lineup and expectations of how it performed yesterday. I think we've seen the basis there that playing that shape and probably similar players up until January is the way to go. In January, get those injury absentees back, get a couple of new players in as well, just to freshen it up and improve where we can. And there's a squad there. I think we've seen that can perform and keep us in this league. I think yesterday went a long way to dispelling another point that our squad simply can't compete. I think we've seen that when set up correctly and when the best players are there, it certainly can. And I hope there's more to come. I mentioned nothing on Ryan Hardy, did I? So yeah. Sorry, Sandra. But we'll always love him, won't we?
I'm looking around for a tin hat for what I'm about to say. Adam mentions about the 4 players who we've still got out. Looking at that back 4 yesterday, if it's that back 4 for the next few games and they perform to that level, Joe Edwards doesn't get back into that back 4. I'm sorry, he doesn't. He doesn't get in.
I would probably agree.
He doesn't get in a starter in that shape, in that system. If they play like that every week, but that's the big question mark.
I think ultimately the one thing that and I think you're probably right. I mean, certainly if Joe Edwards was available tomorrow, I wouldn't be switching around the back four for the Middlesbrough game based on what we've just seen. I think the one point that I haven't mentioned and you know, we have kind of touched on, but the prospect of more injuries coming in. I mean, Brendan Galloway's leg is probably going to fall off again soon, so they'll be switching around to do. There's the likes of the fact that we've got games coming thick and fast. So there's, I think, provided everyone's available, there's a debate, I think, whether Joe Edwards gets straight back in. And Joe, I do think you're correct. But what it would certainly be a positive for is the fact that what we've seen with this shape and with returnees and a few new players, that gives us the chance then for a couple of things. It gives us the chance then for squad rotation, which is going to be huge for certain periods of the game, particularly with the Oxford game called off. We've got a busy time coming. And also, which I think was very apparent yesterday, and Sam mentioned it in his first point, the ability to bring somebody like that off the bench, I think, is something that we were lacking. The substitutes, probably through no fault of their own, it's just where we are as a moment as a squad. I know I said we've got a squad that can compete. Our squad depth, particularly with the absences, is poor, and that's where I think we can look at as yesterday as a little bit disappointing. Nobody's fault, but it's the way it was. So Edwards may not come back in immediately, but having him available will be a big boost.
I couldn't agree more. And ultimately, it's easy to remember with Joe Edwards, pretty much 1 year ago, the kind of common opinion on him is he's absolutely fantastic. He's a great leader. He's a great captain, but he's probably not quite good enough for championship level. Now, it is testament to how well he's done in the time since then that he's actually reversed that opinion and has now sort of made himself one of the first names on the team sheet. Because even a year ago, we weren't being negative about him. We were just saying he's now advanced in years. He's not the quickest player, not the most technically amazing player for this league. He's okay as backup, but probably not starting. And the fact that it even is a controversial statement that he may not be starting shows how much he's raised his level in that year, even at his advanced stage of sort of 33, coming up to 30, 40 years, which is just absolutely incredible how well he's done. That being said, I do agree, because the original view of him wasn't totally wrong, because as much as he has really maximised his level and he has really worked brilliantly hard, and the mental side of his game, the leadership, it's all on point, he is still ultimately not an incredibly quick player for this level, and he's ultimately, I think, not as good a technical footballer as either Ballymumba or Brendan Galloway. So absolutely, I think, yes, he wouldn't come straight back in. But that being said, it is a squad game and more depth is needed. It's one of those, if you have 3 games in a week, you'd probably want Edwards starting maybe one of them. And Adam said, who knows how long Galloway will remain fit for. Then you could be in a scenario whereby Edwards is at right back, Mumba's at left back, or something of that nature, or maybe even Mumba might get pushed higher up. There's so many different ways it can go in that regard. But just to quickly pick up on a couple of other points raised there, I also think Bundu, who I've also not really been a big fan of for this level, I felt he has flattered to deceive too often. Again, what did I say earlier? I give credit where it's due. The last 4 or 5 games, coming back to his great appearance off the bench against Preston, his great appearance off the bench against Watford, got a goal at Norwich, got a goal against Swansea, and a solidly good performance yesterday. He's on a really good run of form, and he's actually picking up his level a bit, and hopefully he can just keep it. Because, look, ultimately, I still don't think he's maybe the player who we want to start every week. But if he can just keep on raising that level and maintaining it and not letting it drop back off into his old ways, he could be a really handy player to have around the squad. So credit to Bundu as well for that.
Okay, you said you wanted to touch on a couple of points and then only did one. So
what was the other? Sorry, no, there was another one. What was it?
That's okay, because the only written question I had tonight, Sam, was I was going to ask you about Mustapha Bundu being the most confusingly frustrating player to ever wear the Argyle shirt. So thank you.
Yeah, I think you tweeted that after that moment where he picked up the ball with all the space in the world and blazed it high in the sky, didn't you? I think
I still just don't really know what he is. Like, people are telling me that he's a winger, but he's not a winger. He's not a
striker. I think he's a striker. But
I was going to say, was it not summed up that he's not a winger when we're on the break in the second half and Hardy feeds him a routine ball on the side, and all he has to do is run alongside it and take it with him in his step. And he sort of tries to step over it and take it on the other side and lets it go out of play for a throw-in. Is that
Yeah,
not the case?
yeah.
Does that not show that he's not really a winger?
Maybe, but I do think that those two moments were probably the only two bad moments he had all game. And I don't think anybody had a bad game, to be clear. But no, he's not a winger. He can play there, and he's certainly getting better there, but he's not a natural winger. I think honestly his best position is as a striker in a 2. Because actually he's not a bad finisher. Because although he's not scored that many goals, he's also not had that many chances. So he's not a bad finisher when you look at the goals he has scored as opposed to the chances he had. I mean, that finish against Leicester that effectively kept this up was a magnificent angled finish. So yeah, he's got a bit about him. He's probably one of those where he isn't really, like a lot of players, isn't really the most suited to the formation we play. But we've got him to the end of the season. He's not, without wanting to be critical, he's not so bad that we can't even have him as backup. He's an adequate backup. Whether we then look to extend his contract beyond the end of the season is perhaps jury's out at the minute, and we can look at that again nearer the time. I mean, ultimately, who knows what league we'll even be in. But the big thing is he's absolutely improving, which is a good thing. And I think Galloway, shout out to him as well. I know that there's been a few comments both in our stream and on social media of, oh, well, that's 2 mistakes in 2 games leading to goals. Galloway needs to be dropped, or Galloway's, part of the problem. But ultimately, they say a week is a long time in football, but in reality, that's about perception, right? Because if you look at the brilliant spells Galloway has had in this team, both in the 4 at the back under Schumacher in December before he got his injury, and most critically, that the spell he had coming back in under Foster and Dewslip towards the tail end of last season, everyone was delighted when he signed his new contract. So let's not, write him off too easily on what is, I was going to say a couple of bad games. It's not even a couple of bad games. It's a couple of bad mistakes within games. And ultimately, only the Swansea one, you could argue, cost us the result because we were already losing at Sheffield United. So, yes, he has made 2 mistakes that have led to goals. Can't argue with that. But he's also had 2 pretty good games apart from that. So let's give him credit. I think he is definitely a better left back than Ogbeta by a mile. I think he is actually a better left back than Barley Mumba. I think Mumba, although when he's further forward, you want him on his wrong side where he can cut inside. When he's actually further back, when he's defensive, you want him on his natural side so he can overlap. So you know what? I think we have stumbled across our best back 4. And I think if not stumbled across, it's perhaps being a bit uncharitable. Maybe, the management, I've genuinely realised it and feeling some input, but somehow or other, we've managed to play our best back 4. Edwards can maybe cover when he comes in, but I'm very happy with the back 4 as it currently is. And I think, you know what, as Adam said, based on the squad we have now, notwithstanding any January business, I think that is only Whittaker and Sissoko away from being our best team.
If you're looking at that squad of players and it takes you this long to stumble across that as your back 4 and being the best options, then I'm not sure management.
Well, to be fair, to give a little bit of credit, Galloway has been injured for quite a while.
Yeah, but you still know that he's a better left back than, bless him, Nathaniel Ogbeta.
Yeah.
But yeah,
not as good as Singer.
No. Well, we don't know. We don't know. Hopefully we'll find out. Yes, questions. Joe, you feel like a Phelan man. Feel not like that. I mean, P321 man 1 says, do you think Phelan has an input in his time he's had? Is it positive going forward? I think yes. Yesterday he was on the side, shouting at individuals and looked good. Did you enjoy his shouting?
I think more than anything, we probably saw a bit of an influence from Mike Phelan on just the mentality and sort of like the body language of the group yesterday. That was what I picked up on. I think his interview on Argyle TV on Thursday was all about mentality and confidence, and trying to just instill a bit of positivity into the team a little bit. That's what it struck to me. And yeah, I think we probably did see that yesterday. I think they looked really confident in possession in the first half. They, even after going 1-0 down, I think I text the group chat, didn't I, and said, name your score when we went 1-0 down after 18 minutes, because I just assumed the floodgates would open like they have done in recent away games. But actually, that's where the character was on show yesterday, is that they calmed the situation down. I know Sheffield United had a couple of minutes there where they were on top after the goal, but we very quickly got back control of the game, and I think we did quite well. So yeah, I think Rooney's played it down, hasn't he, in the press, that Phelan's just had an observational role this week, and I understand that before the Swansea game. I just wonder whether the last couple of training sessions.
He only had about 12 hours before the Swansea game.
Well, yeah, he had Monday and Tuesday morning, didn't he? When they'd probably done a little bit of set piece work or something, which we're obviously so good at. But yeah, I think for sure the last couple of training sessions he would have had more of an input, and I think it is just about, it's almost like it's holding their hands and telling them they are capable of playing Championship football. That's what it was. They were so bereft of confidence, so low on everything really, that you saw it in the second half. A lot of his shouts were to people like Gibson and people, just keep playing it about, just calm down, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing perfectly fine, and they were doing okay. So I think we'll see it more and more. If people are genuinely at home and go into games thinking Mike Phelan's going to give us the bounce that you get when you get a new head coach, then you're wrong, because he's not going to do that. We're not going to suddenly go on a mad unbeaten run now because Mike Phelan's taking training sessions or things. He's purely been brought in to help Wayne Rooney out with a little bit of coaching here, a little bit of coaching there, and he's obviously been brought in to just give those little bits of advice to certain players, because we did see a noticeable improvement in a number of people's performances yesterday. So it's positive. It was a step in the right direction, but it means nothing if we put in a shocker on Saturday. So all eyes have to turn to that.
Adam, I don't know. Tell me if we have. Maybe I haven't been paying attention. Have we given enough praise to Rami Hajj? Is he like... Because yesterday he definitely didn't look like this luxury player that he's been called by the gaffer, should we say? He looked tenacious. He looked like a bit of a workhorse. Looked like he was everywhere.
Yeah, whether we've given him enough praise depends ultimately if you mean short term or long term. Short term, probably not. Long term, we did nominate him for the Ballon d'Or once, so it's worth remembering. But I absolutely agree. He didn't look like the sort of player that the sort of luxury player which you describe as like a passenger you can kind of be happy with when things are going well and is going to abandon you when things are going badly. He did not look like that at all in that role yesterday. He pressed really well. He started off a few attacks as we expected, and it goes all the way back to when we first signed him. I think this is the sort of thing that, even though it ultimately hasn't resulted on a goal on this occasion, this is the sort of thing that he was brought into this team for. Now, I remember I think it might have been the day after or a couple of days after he did sign, and he wasn't available. We played Stoke, and there was a sort of game where we had a lot of tidy play. We had a few shots from range, but never had that cutting edge that would have brought us goals and more than likely the points. And there was a discussion then of, this team is just crying out for Rami Hajj. When he comes in, it's all going to click, and that was a little bit too far in the other direction. It was never going to be that one player was going to totally turn things around. But I think when you think of that and the form that we did have after that Stoke game, when you think of what Rami Hajj did yesterday, both on and off the ball, I think it's inarguable, quite honestly, that this team is better when Rami Hajj is in it. And hopefully that will be a sentiment that continues, which will go a long way, cliche alert, to paying off his fee. And hopefully in January and beyond, when we add new bodies to play around Hajj, we'll get even more out of him. So, he's been the subject of a lot of discussion, both good and bad, and a lot of it has been fair. But I think yesterday showed what he can offer, and I think he deserves a lot of credit, and long may that continue.
We're getting quite a lot of that discourse around Tijani right now, though, aren't we? Where he's not been in the squad for a bit, and all of a sudden people are adding him to the list of miracle workers that need to come back.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with that is it is a bit of a saying that, you're always better when you're not in the team. And I think the trouble is because none of our strikers have really grabbed the ball by the horns this season. I do think despite a decent game yesterday, Michael Obafemi has been a little bit of an underwhelming signing, if I'm honest. He's had more games where he's not made an impact than games where he has. I said he's got some potential, but he's been quite underwhelming for me. Ryan Hardy, he is, yeah. What can we say about him? We all know he has good spells and bad spells. He is a streaky player.
We know that he is the most confidence-driven player that
he is, and it still wouldn't shock me if he scores a goal and then scores, 6 out of the next 8 or whatever. But at the same time, I am conscious he's never had a dry spell that's lasted quite this long before. He's had ones that have lasted a while, but this is his longest dry spell yet. And you know what? I do think he had a good game yesterday. He ran the channels very well. His off-the-ball positioning was fantastic. He got into the position to have 2 great chances, but he just couldn't quite finish them. I think he's done enough to earn his place in the team to start against Middlesbrough. But goodness me, have you ever seen a player who needs a goal more than he does? Because I absolutely think that every probability that when yes, I know he had the Sunderland penalty, but when he gets an open play goal, he could go on a good goal scoring run again. Because look, if I'm being brutally honest, is he a player that a lot of other championship sides are going to look at and think, wow, we really need him to improve our team? Probably not, because I think there's some stuff like the hold-up play, the ability in the air, perhaps, that he maybe doesn't do so well, but he does enough well that when he's on form, he absolutely can be a player in a competitive championship side. And yeah, talk of Tijani, there is the possibility that yes, he might score 1 or 2 more, but would he be as quick as Hardy? Would he run channels as well as Hardy did yesterday? Would he display as good movement as Hardy did yesterday? I think probably not. And that's why Hardy's kept the place in the team. Of course, the other one is Andre Gray, who I maybe jumped the gun on and waxed a little bit lyrical about after his 2 goals against Watford. Saying extraordinary strike. Yeah, I know it's not common, but as much as he did score those 2 great goals against Watford, he's done nothing since then. He's not been in the game. He looks like he's got treacle in his boots. So,
to be fair, Sam, he wasn't even in the Watford game. He just happened to smash it in the back of the net.
Well, he did. Yeah, he did also put a lovely through ball to Callum Wright for a 1-on-1. He missed.
Okay,
but,
I'll let you off. I forget that you've got photographic memory and you're going to pull me up.
But yeah, Andre Gray is, as much as he clearly has that level of quality that's far higher than most of our other forward players, you can't dispute the fact that he just doesn't look fit enough at all. So there are problems with all 3 of the striking options, if I'm honest. And I think people are maybe thinking Tijani is going to come in and fix it, but he did literally score like 2 goals in the Czech league last season. I'm not even sure if he would score any more than Hardy. And even if he did, is he going to be as good in the other areas? He looked like he had a bit of a pinball touch to me when I saw him play, to be honest. So let's not put all, I'll keep an open mind, obviously, but I'm not going to put all my eggs in the Tijani basket, because I think that way leads to disappointment. I think Hardy's probably got that place in the team on lock until January, based on how he played yesterday. And let's just hope he can get the goals to get his confidence back up, because he does need it.
Ryan Hardy, I've just done some quick looking through. In the calendar year of 2024, has played about 39 league games this year and has scored 6 goals in the league
and
in the calendar year goals, 2024.
Yeah, and of those 6 goals, one of them was against Cheltenham in the Cup.
This is just league.
Oh, league.
This
okay,
is just league.
One of them's a penalty. And then you've got the one at Middlesbrough, the one at Sunderland, 2 against Cardiff, and the other being?
Watford on New Year's Day.
Oh, yeah, New Year's Day, of course. So yeah, okay. So when you look at that, that's 5 of them in the first 2 months, and then 1 since.
You, as people who have been regular on the pod since we got going will know, I am the biggest defender of Ryan Hardy in the world, and I will continue to defend Ryan Hardy. And we know he's streaky. You're due a streak, Ryan, please, because we need it. And as Sam's highlighted, there are issues with all this striking options, and January isn't really the month where you find it too easy to go out and get a goal scorer, is it? Particularly at this level. So, it's a tricky one, and I think that as much as we need it sorted now, I think it's a summer issue rather than a January issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe, whilst you're unmuted, do you want to do Ref Watch? It's been a while.
Oh, crikey, we haven't had one of these for a while, have we? Which one of you two was most vociferous about Farai Hallam yesterday? Which of you two really didn't rate his performance?
I mean, I don't think he was great. I wouldn't say I was vociferous. I think he gave a lot of soft ones their way. A lot of ones that it was the classic Homer ref, wasn't it? Really, it wasn't anything that was absolutely terribly blatant, but just like when Randall just out jumped their player for a header and got penalised for it.
Yeah, that one definitely seemed strange.
And just
I think-
quickly, Joe, it definitely wasn't me because I don't know what vociferous means, so it can't have been me. Sorry.
I can't spell it either. What I will say is, for a young referee having just his second championship game, I thought he did okay. I understand Sam's point about the jumping on the back and not, it going against Randall. I think the one thing I will say about the referee is he gave more fouls against us, but actually we were giving away a lot of those tactical fouls, those horrible little fouls on halfway when Sheffield United are trying to make gains that we weren't making earlier in the season. Randall was guilty of that a couple of times. JB got his yellow card for it. I think it was kind of nice to see us making those cynical little fouls. It's not sustainable, of course, because referees will pick up on it and we'll get booked all the time. And he could do nothing about the penalty. It's just it's a tired lunge from Galloway. I think he's expecting a shot, isn't he? And O'Hare is clever. Was it O'Hare or was it Tom Davies? It was O'Hare, wasn't it? He was clever not to pull the trigger and to actually get the contact. But no, I thought he did okay. It was one thing. It's kind of about the referee, but it's not. One thing I will say is I thought that game yesterday was played in a really good tempo, a really good spirit. I think there was a fair amount of respect on the show. Certainly after the game from Chris Wilder about our performance, and I think he signalled that by making 3 changes after 52 minutes. So I think it was 2 teams yesterday who gave what they could. Sheffield United were playing their 3rd game in 6 days. So it was a fair game. There was no, and that's highlighted by the fact that the only 2 yellow cards the referee gave out were for pulling of the shirt basically on the halfway line, weren't they? So no, overall I think he did okay. If you'd come to me in midweek after the Swansea game talking about the referee, I'd probably have had a bit more of a negative outlook on RefWatch, but no, I thought he did okay, and he had no bearing about the game. But it's nice to bring back RefWatch for a brief stint, Aaron.
Lovely. Adam, before I go to Sam and talk about the big talking point at the end, which is Michael Cooper, is there anything else you want to add on the Sheffield United game?
Nothing that I'd add. I just would re-emphasise that the way that we see this game is going to be heavily dictated by what happens in the next fortnight. Better performances in the games coming up I'm going to reuse the words I've said before, but we'll be looking back at this as a turning point. Fail to build on it, and we'll probably end up looking at this, as weird it is to say, against top of the league away, as a missed opportunity. So I've just got my fingers crossed, and I'm hoping to find a few 4-leaf clovers that we will have that run now going forward to the next few games in what is a really, really important spell of the season.
We've got to, haven't we? And just to quickly follow up on that point, as much as I am happy with the improvement and the fact we've now finally found a good way of playing, how frustrating, what a wasted couple of months that we've had these months of not doing any of the stuff we're doing, not playing out from the back effectively, not pressing properly, not doing any of the stuff that's worked so well. And now we finally realised, and also the games in which we didn't do any of that stuff, or were the games against worst opponents. If we'd have played like that at Cardiff and Millwall and Preston home, we would have got more than 1 point out of those 3 games. We'd have been looking at probably 5 or even more than that, And then even Derby away, they were poor on the day. We could have got a win there if we'd have played a bit better. I know that we did draw Watford home, but we possibly could have even won that game. Obviously, look, not all of these results would have gone our way. Some of them would still have gone against us like yesterday's did. But what a waste of a good run of fixtures to not realise these obvious things. And yes, Galloway not being fit. I'm not saying we should be like near the playoffs or anything. But I'm sorry, the idea that Rooney could not have been getting any more out of the squad in the last 2 months is totally and utterly for the birds, in my view, because he absolutely could have been. And yesterday shows that, how well we played. Yes, I know people will pop up saying, well, it doesn't change anything. We still didn't win, but we were playing Sheffield United away. We've been previously playing much worse sides and also not winning. So frustrating, but we've got to follow up on it. You know, what's the old saying go? Don't cry over spilt milk. So it's done now. Let's give Rooney and Phelan a chance. Unfortunately, we've got another bloody tough game coming up in Middlesbrough. They're one of the best away teams in the league, and they've got a certain Finn Azaz who's absolutely on fire for them at the moment. So that's going to be a tough game also, and it's also going to be a game that we could well come out of it saying we played well and lost. And if that is the case, which it may well be, those two games over Christmas, Coventry and Oxford away, we have got to come out of at least one of those games with a win, without a shadow of a doubt. Otherwise, we're going to be in big, big trouble going into January. So frustrating as it is, let's just hope that a corner has been turned and we've not left it too late and we get cut adrift.
One final point, Aaron, before we move it on to the other talking point and then preview Middlesbrough. Adam alluded to it there and Sam's just said it. It may just be false hope. It may just be me wearing my green tinted spectacles. I get a sense that yesterday may well have been a bit of a turning point, just in terms of dressing room mentality and dressing room confidence and things, that actually they can go to these grounds and they can mix it with the best in this league. There's been a fear factor up until this point. Yesterday felt like a bit of a wake-up call, whether or not, you know, they just smelt the coffee and they just, as Sam said, stumbled across it or not, who knows. But yesterday just felt, when you see the scenes at full time with the players coming over and applauding the supporters staying behind to give them a round of applause at the end because they appreciated their efforts, it just felt to me like it may well have been the point that in 2-3 months, I'm not saying that we'll find ourselves in 14th, 15th, because we won't. I think our ceiling this year is probably 20th, if I'm being brutally honest with you. But if we can claw ourselves out of the relegation zone and put a couple of points between us and the bottom three, I think we'll look back on Saturday as being the moment that just not transformed our season, because that's a stupid thing to say, but just gave them belief. And that's all it's come down to. It's just belief.
Yeah, isn't it mad that if your manager's not coming out calling you crap in the press and actually putting his arm around you like Mr. Mike Phelan has apparently been doing and telling you maybe you are good enough for this league, how confidence might change. But anyway, there is one final thing actually on yesterday, is that it's another goal. Well, two really. Penalties are set pieces, but it's another goal conceded from a set piece. Is that's still a huge worry? Is there any chance? I mean, actually, not even a point. Not even going to ask a question about getting in a set piece, coach, because what's the point? We cover that most bloody weeks. Sam Down. There was a few in that away end yesterday, including yourself, who were booing Michael Cooper. That's a joke, by the way.
Certainly not. Yeah, if anything, Aaron, as you will know, as you were there, I lost my head that some people were booing, because I thought it was
furious.
I thought it was pretty.
You were telling them to boo louder. You were saying, "Come on, get your lungs down."
No, I thought it was a pretty bad indictment on a very insular mentality. If people were booing, if I'm honest, because I think that he's a player who's done so fantastically well for so long for us. Yes, he left. Yes, he wanted to leave. But at the end of the day, if he hadn't have signed that 1-year contract extension at the point in which he had his first injury, then he could have left on a free at the end of last season. Because ultimately, the trajectory would have still been the same. He still would have come back into the team after that injury. He would have come back with like 6 months left on his contract rather than 18. So, you're not being funny, but it's only thanks to he's done us a favour that we've even got as much as 2 million for him. So I don't agree with some of the negative mindset towards him at all. That being said, maybe it was just pantomime booing at the start of the game, because actually when the final whistle occurred and he came over to clap the fans, he got rapturous applause and even got a chant sung in his name. And I'm very glad that moment made up for the slight booing he did receive at the start. Not that there was all that much of it, but the fact that there was any of it just annoyed me a bit. But look, fair play, great moment at the end. Chris Wilder sort of encouraged it. I think I've seen people word it as Wilder told him to come over. I'm not really sure that's right, because actually what it looks like to me is Cooper goes over to Wilder as if to ask him a question. you can obviously Wilder nod his head, and then Cooper comes back over to the away fans, having seen it again on the video. So I don't think it's as such Wilder told him to go over. I think it's more the case that Cooper asked for permission to go over, and Wilder clearly said, yes, you can. It's the way I see it, because Cooper went over to Wilder, and then Wilder nodded, and then Cooper came over. So that's the way I read that video. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but either way, he did.
If you look at the video again, you can see that Wilder is pointing towards the fan base as Cooper makes his way over. He's telling him to acknowledge the Argyle fan base. So I think my opinion is that Wilder's encouraged him to actually go over to the fan base. That's how, given what he said in the press afterwards as well, that's my reading of it all.
No, maybe you are right. But look, either way, Cooper was clearly very, very happy to. And maybe if he was a little hesitant, it might just be because of that reception at the start. But either way, Cooper did go over, and it was good to have that moment. And I think his performance yesterday in a game that we were very good showed what a fantastic keeper he is again. Because yes, he only had one big save to make. He did also have the one from Hajj first half. That was, as much as Hajj had a brilliant game yesterday, that was quite a poor finish and was got it right at Cooper. But the Hardy save in the second half, Hardy is so unlucky that header didn't end his goal scoring drought, because it was a fine header. And Cooper had to really be at full stretch to get a hand to it, at full stretch. So it just shows what a good keeper he is. And ultimately, the level of communication, again, this is not a slight on Grimshaw or Hazard or any of our other keepers, Morosi even, not that we've actually seen him play, but the levels to which Cooper communicates with his defenders is unlike any keeper I've ever seen, really. He's always on at them. He's always yelling something. He's always sort of waving his arms around. And anyone who's played the game at any level, which I've not, to be clear, but I've spoken to people who have, will tell you that having a goalkeeper who reads the game and tells you where to go is worth its weight in gold. And it's one of those intangibles that fans don't necessarily see. So yeah, he did have a great game, unfortunately for us. Would have been nice for him to have a rare blooper, but 9 clean sheets in a row at home for Sheffield United, and they've won all 9 of them, which is absolutely incredible. I think they're absolutely destined for the Premier League next season, and who knows, maybe Mike Cooper will be the goalkeeper who stops them being a yo-yo team, because he is that X-factor player. He is that player who will make save after save after save. P321 man saying in the comments, saying England #1 inbound. I'm still not sure I agree, just because I don't really think he's the profile of keeper who England like to play. England love a player who plays out from the back. That's why James Trafford has got on the squad a couple of times, even though he's a worse keeper than Michael Cooper in a lot of other ways. So I don't really think he'll be England's #1. Maybe he'll get a cap or two. I don't know. But I think he is destined for the Premier League, without a doubt. And he had a fantastic game, and it was good to have that nice moment at the end where the Argyle fans paid tribute. And yeah, what can I say apart from I think we all miss him?
Yeah, I don't think I believed truly how good he was. I knew, don't get me wrong, I knew that he was excellent, and I thought he was the best keeper that I've definitely ever seen in an Argyle shirt, etc. But when I used to say he will go on to play for England, I was like, yeah, do you know what I mean? A little, but he just is. He's just going to do it, Sam. I disagree with you. I think, yeah,
he might do. Look, he might do, but I would be surprised. Bear in mind he's now 25, which, yes, for a keeper is still not that old. But England like to play players who've been through their youth setup, don't they? There's not that many.
England like to play Jordan Pickford, and that's it.
Well, is there really that many occasions though for England whereby a player who has never played for England at any youth level has been like a late bloomer and has then come in as a senior player despite having never played at any youth level? I don't know. I can't really name a time where it's happened. It's it might happen, and he might get a cap or two, but England's #1, I would still be surprised. But who knows? Like you said, Cooper has surprised us before. So if he is good enough and does do it, then that just even more shows what a fine goalkeeper he is.
If only there was somebody on this call who watches England religiously, home and away.
I feared this would happen because I can't think of an example either. So sorry, everyone.
That does go against him, doesn't it? As good as he is, that does go against him. The fact
I wouldn't hold it against Adam at all, mate. To be honest,
that does go against Mike Cooper. Is all I mean. Not even saying that it should do, but England love a very certain style of goalkeeper, don't they? I mean, Grimshaw's more their style of keeper than Cooper is. Not that he's anywhere near as good, but they love a player who has that little fancy transitionary pass out from the back, don't they? That is very much what England go for, and I just don't think Cooper, as good as he is, quite fits the mold to be a number one. But hey, if he's third choice and he goes to the 2026 World Cup or he goes to the 2028 Euros as a third choice, then I think he'll look back on that as an incredible experience.
Yeah, nice. Okay. Well, he's famously good friends with Ian Foster, who I'm led to believe has, contacts in the FA. So, no,
Let's not be naughty. Come on.
Might get him in. You never know. You never know. Should we just do a really quick, because we've been over an hour. Should we do a quick Middlesbrough preview? Joe, you're nodding. Go on, give us your initial thoughts.
Yeah, it's tough. How many cliches am I going to be able to get out in the next couple of minutes? They're a pretty good team, aren't they? They go well on the road. 4 wins out of their 10 game, only 4 defeats. They score plenty on the road as well. And we concede plenty home or away, it seems. So it's going to be tough. Look, it's the second game in a row where we're going up against one of our former loves, if you like. It's incredibly tough. Although he was a lone player, he felt like he was ours because he was with us for what, 18 months in the end. So I'm absolutely sure he's going to get a brilliant reception, as he should do. And hopefully he then turns out to put in his worst 90 minutes of the season. But look, they've got wonderful players all over the pitch. They've got a manager who I rate quite highly, who I think may or may not be in line for a Premier League job soon enough, given there's going to be a few going. So, we'll have to wait and see, won't we? And my hope is that we get through this week without any, as you mentioned earlier, Aaron, any UFC style injuries. Let's hope they put the boxing gloves away this week and don't play tag rugby. And they just do a bit of work on the training ground and we get through the week with everybody unscathed. Because if we can put that same 11 out on the pitch again this week, then I think we'll be quite happy. If they go into it with the same intent, effort, determination, then we'll give Middlesbrough a game. And at the moment, that's all we can really do until we can get Sissoko and Whittaker in particular back, and then try and get some reinforcements in January. I hope Home Park is a better atmosphere than it was on Tuesday night. I thought the atmosphere Tuesday night was awful. Really awful. I'm going to put it down to the fact that everybody was frozen. That's what I'm going to put it down to, and the fact we had very little to actually get excited about.
We spoke about this on a pod when we rebooted, so November last year. Bloody hell, it's not even
the year before when it title winning season.
November 2022, yeah.
I was going to say, bloody hell, there's been a long year if it's only been a year. When Nick, now known as the Argyle analyst, was on, and he was saying that there is research into the fact that atmospheres drop as it gets colder and people wear gloves. So therefore, clapping is muted. There you go.
There we go. So I urge everybody to go without gloves on Saturday. It's only a couple hours where your hands can get cold. And if you're clapping long enough, your hands will stay warm anyway. I just hope it's a good atmosphere. Middlesbrough will bring down, I expect Middlesbrough will bring down a few. I know it's an awkward time of year to come down, isn't it? But I expect a tough game.
What's happening?
What's
happening? Why is it an awkward time of year?
There's a festive holiday or something a couple of days after the Middlesbrough. I don't know. I'll spend most of it intoxicated. I hope it's a good game. I hope it's a good watch. I don't want it to be a chore. I don't want it to be as difficult to sit through as the 90 minutes was on Tuesday night. We are due a good home performance because the last 4 haven't been very good. So hopefully if we can replicate what we did on Saturday, then that will go a long way to maybe getting a bit more of a just reward for our efforts. And actually, I'd like a slice of luck. We kind of got it on Tuesday when the ball comes back off the crossbar and Bundu's just there to knock it home. Sam was giving him praise for his goal on Tuesday night. Well, he couldn't do anything but put it in the back of the net, in all fairness.
You've got to be a poacher there, haven't you?
where's the set piece? So I'd like to think somebody's in that position, whether it's him or bloody Cornell Such. I don't care who it is. So yeah, let's, we're due a good performance. We're due a proper slice of luck as well. It's about our turn that somebody else's centre half puts in a tired lunge in the penalty area, and we get something like that. So let's just hope luck is on our side, and we can go into the festive season with a little bit more joy in our lives.
Yeah, Adam, Joe's already touched on him. The little goat, the little magician that is Finn Azaz. P321 Mad One says, "I miss that man so much." Who do you miss more, him or Michael Cooper?
Based on the fact that I think Grimshaw's been decent, Azaz is the biggest miss of them by quite a long way, I think, at the moment. Not that I'd turn my nose up at having either back. But yeah, I think Azaz, if he'd stayed around, if we'd signed him permanently that summer, rather than getting a loan, there's potential that we can have a very different looking side. But yes, Azaz, outstanding player, one of the best midfielders in this league, and certainly on current form, is improving all the time. I think back to when we first signed him, when he just had a decent season for Newport in League Two. Then he came to us in League One and had a very good season. Then he's come up to us in the Championship and had an excellent half season. Has gone to Middlesbrough a year later, is doing even better. So who knows? Sky's the limit for the guy. If he's on current form, I think the scariest thing, if we're going to put it like that, for Middlesbrough coming down here, is that there is an argument that he's not even been their best player this year, because Ben Doak on the right, the Liverpool loanee, has been a sensation since they brought him in. With the amount of he progresses the ball on the right, the amount that he, Azaz being there in the partnership, I think brings the best out of each other. So that's going to be one. It wouldn't surprise me with Doak if he was follows a very similar path, I think, for Harvey Elliott, who a few years ago spent some time in the Championship on loan. I think it was Blackburn. I may be wrong. I think he was there. And rather than going back to Liverpool and going back out on another loan, so like a lower Premier League side, he just broke into the first team. I really, really think Doak could go in a similar direction. So I think him and Azaz, that's the sort of team we're up against here. And it's...
Don't forget Hayden Hackney as well, Adam. He's had a very good start to the season. Good young player. He's an aggressive midfielder as well. Really aggressive midfielder.
There's players all over the pitch. I look at Edmondson at the back. People may remember him from Ipswich. He's come in and got himself right back into the side, or right back into the flow of the Championship side, I should say. And up front, there's one of Middlesbrough's, to my eye at least, one of Middlesbrough's troubles over the last year or so, and the fact that they haven't got into like an automatic promotion or some position or something like that, is that they're struggling. They were struggling to finish chances. They were creating a lot. They were generally dominating games, but weren't getting the results. And that's changed in recent weeks. And I think a lot goes into the centre forward there, Emmanuel Letelaf, who had missed a huge number of big chances in his first 12 months at the club, but has really come into his own in recent weeks and is showing exactly the value. I think if you're going to go too statistical into it, it's a classic case of reverting to the mean with regards to XG, who was massively underperforming last year. And whilst I still think he may well be underperforming slightly this year, I don't know the exact numbers, but he's a lot closer. And I think the goals that he scored, including a winner just yesterday, have reflected that. So yeah, there's quality all over the pitch here, and it's going to be a really difficult one. And I agree with Joe that the best that we can ask for, I can't remember the exact wording, Joe, I'm sorry if I'm putting words in your mouth, but the best we can hope for, I guess, is the performance levels remain high, that we get the continuation from yesterday, and if we do, hey, it's a funny league, anything can happen, but it's going to be a really, really tough game again.
You say it's a funny league. I'm not finding it that funny at the moment. I can't lie. Sam, question is, and the answer is yes. So, same first 11?
Yes.
Good.
I've got nothing further to add because my pizza's here and I want to watch the darts. So that's my only comment on the preview.
Oh, wow. That's professional, isn't it?
Very.
Okay.
Highly he values this thing.
I think Joe and Adam have covered it both brilliantly.
Oh,
do you?
Well,
just want to add, for those who aren't aware of the schedule, the darts have been on for the last 2 hours. So he's missed most of it already. So
That's what the
Man-
cord's there for.
Man
Joe.
throws
You
arrows
can-
towards
you can
dartboard.
start from the
Another
beginning.
man does it afterwards. Another man does it again. Second man does it afterwards. There you go. There's the darts covered. Although I am like weirdly getting into it, aren't I? I don't need another sport to ruin my life, to be honest. Anyway, let's just do quick predictions, clockwise order. Joe?
I think I've done in the predictions league 2-2.
Sam? Yeah, you're muted.
Muted.
That's good. Adam?
I don't know what I've done in the predictions league, but against my better judgment, almost 2-1 win.
That means we're going to lose because Sam never gets these things right. Adam?
Yeah, I'll be the pessimistic one here. But I'm hoping we get a similar performance to what we did yesterday, and I think we can give them a game if we do. I think their quality is going to tell them we might be edged out 2-1.
Yeah. Well, I was going to go 2-1 because that's the opposite of what Sam said. So I'll go, no, why not? 1-0. No, because Finn Azaz is going to score. So, yeah, all right. 2-1 defeat. No, win. 2-1 win. 2-1 win. I'll go with Sam. No, but Sam's going to be
That
wrong.
was coherent. So
Sam's going to be wrong, though.
We'll be
3-1.
kicked off in a minute,
3-2 win.
Aaron.
3-2 win. How's
Okay.
that? And that brings the end of yet another live episode of Green and White, brought to you by Argyle Life. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and all your podcast platforms. Put your hand down, Joe. You're not saying anything. And
all I want to say is what's happening next week.
Yeah, I'm literally about to say it, but thank you. And hopefully next week we'll be doing a live in-person pod where we're all together. Isn't that cute? And there have been loads of questions about January and the transfer window, and we're going to basically cover all of that and not really cover the Middlesbrough game that much. Well, unless it's a barnstorming 5-0 win, and then we will. So, yeah, that was coherent and summarised nicely. Love you, bye.